Make some noise for them, please. Shrikant, you have the honor of the conversation. Over to you, please. We're going to push the volume up on that mic.
Yeah, this one's working, I think.
Mic number 1.
Is this better?
Just
Wonderful.
put him on the monitors as well, if you don't mind. Yeah.
Morning, everyone. Rather tough to follow Cyrus, but I'll try my best. Ronnie, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Great to be here.
So I must say, for me personally, I work with Upgrad Enterprise. Ronnie's my boss, so I was particularly thrilled about the session because today I get to ask the questions. So with that, let's just jump straight into it. I mean, Ronnie, I think all of us here, the world knows that you're big on impact investing. You have the Swades Foundation, and clearly, impact has always been disrupted quite a bit by technology, and the AI is the latest technology trend. So what's your perspective on AI's role in impact investing, and how do you think that will change the landscape, especially generative AI?
So maybe I'll put a few things in perspective. Since you gave me a context of I've been around for some time, I think it's my sort of duty to talk about the fact that in the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010, we've seen incredible revolutions, from broadband to telecom to cable to, I can tell you, many, many disruptive technologies. You're talking about in the media space from OTT. I think what happens first is a lot of hype. A lot of hype happens. Second, I think a lot of the, what I would call challenges or bad things about that innovation comes about, even when it came to the World Wide Web. And then I think settle down and the strength happens. And I think today we're at that first and initial stages. So I think, and especially for India, we can't always draw our benchmarks from the US, because I think just our ecosystem, our market, our availability for consumers to pay, our ability to consume, how much we can disrupt our workforce are all going to be very varied levels. Because our workforce, we're an agri-economy in many ways. You look at the rural, it's going to be slightly different. So using AI as a means, then using AI as a career option, all of these are going to be. So I think I just wanted to set the tone, and I know it's 3 days. A lot of people have absorbed a lot. But these are things that you need to level yourself and pace it. Because if you think everything's going to happen here and now, if the first 10 startups is the FOMO to fund, or the first 10 startups are going to actually make it, it may not be. This is a place where it needs to mature. This is also a place where I think you need to see it's absolutely fine to be second and not first. And those actually prevail. You've seen it from the dot-com variety to the World Wide Web to many technologies. The long horse ones have been the ones who've outlasted people. And I think spontaneously, that's what really happens. And I think, I think AI is also going to be a place where most of us feel it's changing so fast, I need to have the speed to react and respond. And yesterday we had chess champion Vishwanath Anand at our office. And, the only thing he said, between one chess move and the next, what's the biggest challenge? Is I got to put my hands under my legs and not get prompted to move, because you feel there are 18 different moves that can happen. And I just feel I want to go with one of them. But the best people who really win an Olympic gold are the people who just slow down the game, because there's so many combinations to everything you want to do. So I just want to give this as opening comments. And maybe the last one I'll say here on a more lighter note. I think we always talk about fintech and edtech and meditech, and I think everyone is so incensed with AI, but I think that the prefix suffix is going to change. I think tech is going to be, so everyone in ed is now going to call it ed AI, fin AI, because that seems to be the mantra. Yeah. Again, caution there, because if we start looking at everything like it's a tsunami or a wave, we're going to miss the trees from the woods, or the woods from the trees.
Absolutely, Ronnie, well said. I think just to remind all of us, Google was not the first search engine that emerged. It was probably the 16th, and today Google is the only one that we remember. So clearly. But, one debate that AI brings, like other technology disruptions have before, is how does one reconcile profit with purpose? And I think, if you take even examples like OpenAI today, started as a not-for-profit, now they're going into a commercial mindset, and that's something that causes dissonance. But coming back to impact, is there a way to, let's say, balance profit and purpose when it comes to something like AI?
See, I think it's an over-dramatized thing because they are in many ways. If you see most organizations that are highly profitable, they channelize 90% of their resources back to reinvestment, to R&D. Pharmacy and the whole medical field would not have gone forward unless you had some very, very profitable organizations. There is some evil also in the pharma industry, but I won't go there. But what I would say is you need to be highly profitable to then reinvest. So 80, 90% goes in reinvestment. And then when shareholders get behind you, you spend money on either a dividend or buyback of shares, which are really the evils of making too much money. So I think today when people say you can't make impact unless you make less profit is really wrong. Because frankly, I think either you're for profit or you're not for profit. You can't be for less profit. It doesn't work that way. Because then you're going to get choosy. And I think look at the medical plot. I mean, if you really want medical access in this country, you're not going to be able to do it by just having tertiary hospitals that can go out and give free medical aid, because the motivations to set them up and the reach is not going to be there. So would you rather have a 50-bed hospital in excess of 3 kilometers of any person in India, but you have to pay 5,000 rupees, or would you not have that and subsidize it for 1,000 rupees? So there's always going to be that balance. So today I think, and Upgrad is a for-profit, the foundation we run, Swades, is a not-for-profit. I can see the two distinct elements, and we do education, skilling, exactly that in the not-for-profit, and we do education and skilling in the for-profit. And I think both have an impact. In the not-for-profit, it's only impact. But you need to generate and attract CSR funding in many years. Here, I think when you are in the profit, you establish the concept. And the last thing I would say is skin in the game, right? Because I think when everyone subsidizes it, when everything is for free, for example, it's never appreciated. Never, ever appreciated. So I think it's already written in the norms of how you go about it. The only thing is you need your principles and your ethics right in that, right? But I think today, 80% of all profits that will be generated by a sector like AI are going to go back into research and development and innovation.
No, thanks, Ronnie. And you mentioned Swadesh, and I've personally visited the Swadesh communities many times. Clearly, something like AI can impact rural communities at scale. So taking Swadesh as an example, your thoughts on how AI could be leveraged in developing or uplifting rural communities to participate in the boom that India is at the cusp of today?
I think for all of us here, and many countries, joining the army for 1 year is mandatory. I think in India, spending a year in rural India for the people who have versus the have not, I think should be almost mandatory. I think for 1 year, you need to be a teacher. Genuinely, I think anywhere and everyone, the real course, if you really want to change this country by 2047, is that 1 year, don't be in the army. We've got an incredible amount of people in the army. But just be a teacher, skill and adopt 5 people, and spend 1 year in rural India. Firstly, it's going to be benefiting you more than the other person, I can guarantee you that. The mentee always benefits, the mentor always benefits, the mentee is always the second one to benefit. So all I would say that if I look at that element, today what is needed in rural India is lifting aspirations. If I had to say how 1.3 billion people are going to contribute for us to be the nation we want to be in 2047, it's ambition and aspiration. Yep. We're all sitting in very privileged circumstances here, very entitled in the way we come. We're always trying to criticize, like Cyrus said, the traffic, somebody else is talking about, but I'm not getting enough, and everyone's looking for the next. But that's a very entitled and privileged way to look at things. The 700 million people are not going to be able to be part of the growth story unless their ambition and aspiration changes. That's where I think the democratization of what AI will bring to the table, not just from a technology point of view, but what, therefore, you can communicate with them with. And the younger generation, for me, I think it's a very powerful tool for changing aspirations and ambitions in the country. And it'll happen anywhere and everywhere.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And you know, the need or the desire to actually uplift themselves and uplift the community is very palpable when you visit a rural community. And technology can act as a bridge. And in fact, going back to the point that Cyrus made about the traffic, it can have significant implications on things like urbanization, things like transport, because suddenly if you take the job to where the person is, as opposed to bringing the person to where the job is, which is what happens in the economy today, how do you think that will impact the economy?
So I think, look, there is an obvious attention to the fact that the word displace comes about and the word replace comes about. But I think the impact of augmentation is kind of undescribed in that whole process. If you displace and replace, it actually means that something else takes its place and then the water moves to another level and there's more opportunities. So I think we're missing that bus, because if you can augment, look, we're a nation which has always been in cost arbitrage. We've been in being, and you know, the IT industry has done an incredible job putting us on the world map, being a great exporter. This city is privileged to be that. But at the end of the day, the best way we're going to move up to be one of the top economies in the world is to be an intellectual capital base. So the benefit that's going to come from us uplifting our overall selves and putting our benchmarks of where we want to be. And I think even if the government, the Prime Minister, and the mantra is we want to be in that roadmap, right? Now, the present challenge for all of us is jobs. Actually, the most contrarian thing for a politician to go out on the pulpit when you're talking about jobs is to then say we want to be the AI capital of the world also, because you know that's going to replace people. But the fact of the matter is that is the visionary part. That is the one where you're sending out the message that we will find occupation for many people. Anyway, jobs and skilling the world over is going to be a huge challenge. I don't think we should blame something like this. AI is not a technology, right? Because I think what you put in there, what it communicates, so the content, the creativity, and the innovation, and I come from that field of AI, is as important as the technology of what it's going to do, the logarithm of what it's going to do. Yeah. So I think today we should not look at it as that huge threat. And if we were, as I said, the political mantra in the country would have been no, 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 because if the present ruling party wants to win in 2029, they're going to have to solve development. They're going to have to solve jobs, and I think that's the biggest crisis. So I think we're using this tool in a very productive manner. And I think for all of us here, the privileged, we need to find ways in which this is going to augment. Yep. How is this going to create multiple more opportunities in content, in creativity, in innovation, in many other aspects, rather than worrying how just the technological part is going to replace it.
Absolutely. No, AI is an augmentation, completely agree. And you talked about India being the intellectual capital of the world. I think we should probably take a minute to celebrate our chess boys and girls who won the world championship. Yeah. So maybe a round of applause. That's just the start, but hopefully a good start. Very, very proud of them. But coming back to the point that you made earlier about, you know, the fact that you could, with technology's enabler, change lives for many people by giving them new skills. How does one bridge that skilling gap? How could AI help?
You're just going to be at it. Obviously, it is an imperative need. There is absolutely no question that what we need to do is unlearn and learn. I mean, I think we've been saying that for MBAs for the last 10 years. We've been saying that for many other parts of that. And this whole unlearning is a mindset change, right? Because actually we don't unlearn. What we do is we kind of squash it there, yes, yeah. And we kind of little bit of adapt. Real unlearn is jettisoning. You know, it's like you take your drawer and you clean it up one day. Yep. That's a different feeling than having just the things you need at the tip of the drawer and then the rest is still there, because frankly, you haven't figured out whether you'll ever need it again, which is the most indecisive thought process. Either you need it or you don't need it. Either it's junk or it's not. And I think unlearning is about knowing to press junk and delete forever. So yeah, I think that's what it would be.
Oh, makes sense. And talking about reskilling, talking about deploying AI across multiple industries as an enabler, there are a lot of entrepreneurs in the room as well, in addition to people from large corporates. What would you suggest to an entrepreneur who's looking at AI as an opportunity?
See, I think let's look at what we're doing at Upgrad, right? We don't see this obviously as a threat because firstly, it's a maximum tool for intellectual property creation. We're looking at it as an innovative tool. If I look at my media days, I would look at this not as a threat to script writers. You know, I think that influencers, YouTube today, short form versus long term, there's so many, there are 90 other threats before even AI came in, right? The fact that somebody can tell something in the distraction levels or the way we consume content, you can say is a much more threat. So I think if you look at the innovative part, then you look at the augmentation. I think we're all looking at it as the end. There's so much in the means to the end where the business opportunities are going to arise. I don't think we even realize that. So most of us are looking at an outcome versus we can be part of a value chain in the entire process of what we want to do. So if I have a cohort of 60 people learning together in, management of data analytics, etc., the ability in the online where AI is telling me which learner went back to that lesson 3 times online, where did he stop, where is she or he having a problem, how is everyone else solving that, and that data point for us to be able to in nanoseconds go back to them and saying, hey Mohan, you had a struggle doing this here, where do we want to go? To the fact that I think when we're designing our courses for what we want to do, it is a process where in 3 months you can learn X, but in 1 year you can learn Y. So that I would just urge everyone here that let's not look at it as an output and only an app and as an outcome, but there's an incredible journey and a means to that. Second, just like I mentioned and gave the element of chess, you've got to be able to pause and not look for those competitive outcomes. The beauty about a technology like this and about opportunities that are coming out in India is to outlast others, not necessarily be the first. And I think some of the people who just out there to be the first in something may attract a few VC investors, but we know how fickle-minded they can be as we go forward. You've got to figure out, especially for something like this, which is here to stay, between the technology part and the innovation part, how are you going to outlast people for the next 3 to 4 to 5 years? If you start answering those questions, your vision statement will be a lot more clearer, your business opportunity will be humongous, and I think you'll attract the best talent.
No, completely, and talking about education and the impact, I can firsthand tell the audience that real-time customization of curriculums for millions of people is now a reality. Language is not a barrier. Access to information is not a barrier. Interventions to be able to help people sort wherever they stumble. I mean, we've all been at school where some people stumble with a particular problem, some stumble with paying attention long-term. All of these can be impacted with technology at huge. But shifting gears a bit, Ronnie, you've got Unilazer Ventures, you're also an investor. In that context, if you were to look at impact investment opportunities, how do you see that space playing out over the next couple of years?
I think India is a country where impact is going to make a lot of money, but it's also going to create a lot of impact. And I think that's the beauty of it. And today, I'm excited to be hands-on in the businesses that one is building because I see the combination of both. Otherwise, at this stage, I would only choose impact and look at a not-for-profit. But I see in the profit the ability to create impact being 10 times more powerful because you're in much more control of your destiny. When you only do it for low profit or impact, you're always going to be subservient to the resources you can garner and the funding you can raise or the profitability that you want to do. So I would urge everyone that look at, to me, the impact sector in India is huge. Second, look, we are a market that is price sensitive, whichever way we look at that. We've not really paid for content. Brands take a long time to get established in here. Outside of the top 50 million people out of 1.3, 1.4 billion, nobody pays premium for a brand. So when you look at that market, the fact that you can impact and make a lot of money is going to be the opportunities. And I think large companies today that are successful have been able to do that. So I think even in the telecom sector, look at the change that has necessarily happened, right? The fact that we're the lowest talk price country in the world, but actually what's the impact that it's made? It's made anyone from anywhere being able to talk, communicate. So we've actually, and cut short so many things. Today, nobody thinks of bandwidth here. 10 years back when you wanted to launch a business, everyone thought India is going to be 50 years away because of bandwidth. But we broke that cycle. Now you can say the people who are actually doing that, yeah, they're the top market cap companies in India, right? So they didn't choose profitability versus impact. They chose both. And I would urge everyone that that's the way you're going to build incredible value, good profits that need to be plowed back.
So then is it fair to say that it's actually not a choice to be made, that it's either profit or impact? It is profit with impact because both go completely together.
Yeah, I just don't see a formula for the other one. The or is a path where you'll feel good for 6 months. The honeymoon period may last for a year. You may be very satisfied if you're running a, as I said, there is nothing wrong with not for profit, but then go with it whole hog, because then your ability to create impact will be without that accountability.
Yeah. Makes sense. And I think one last area I want to touch on before we throw it open to the audience for questions, Ronnie, is we've talked about the impact of AI on education, on skills, on employability, and other area that's talked about, and this is traditionally an area where corporates focus, is sustainability. Where do you see AI and sustainability playing out in the potential for impact?
Yeah, so there I think there's actually all we need to do there is a lot of innovation. I mean, the whole sustainability, the whole environment part today, we just touched the tip of the iceberg, no pun intended, because we're worried about all the icebergs melting all over the place. So, but really, that is the absolute tip of the iceberg. So the ability for past data and past precedents to be able to give us that. See, the reason why it's data analytics and not just data is because we're going to be paid to analyze. We're not paid to generate data. And I think what AI is going to do is augment our analytical skills to be able to come up with that. Because whichever way we look at it, our minds are not going to be trained as 360 degrees. So if you have a 360-degree tool that's going to be a great prompter, it can't go ahead of you. Because if it's going ahead of you, then I think the technology is replacing that.
Absolutely.
But if you've got a great prompter, imagine if you're having an entire working environment and you're working there and you've got a great prompter. Imagine a group where 4 founders coexist because they complement each other with 4 such specific skills that all together they're a powerful impact of what they want to do. I think that's the journey that everyone needs to be on. And I think for that point of view, if you harness that part, you're going to get to a lot more innovation. And again, we're at such an early stage that let's not uncork any bottle of champagne. This is not the time to celebrate. When people say, oh, I got funded for an AI, I would say, good luck. I definitely wouldn't say congratulations because the journey starts now.
Just begun.